Hi guys, it's the Chit Chat Show with the Elegant One of Sports. My name is Idafi Matthew Esiogene, and on my Chit Chat Show today, I have what I'll call someone that I'll call my professor, my mentor, my guide, the man who will give me resource when I'm doing research on financial numbers in sports. If you read themedium.com, this is a man that you want to read his articles and his column. He's a man of many caps. He's part of the Olympic movement. He works part-time as the best stadium in the world right now, the best sports arena in the world right now. So advanced, so sophisticated. I'm talking about the Mercedes-Benz Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. And he's also part of a consultancy group that helps to market the Olympic and also help other countries on how to market their sports. He was in Kenya recently, Zambia, and he's been everywhere. He's part of the Olympic movement, as I said. And when I was in Brilla FM, it's one of those persons who always called me and send me text message and say, you're doing well, well done. I appreciate what you're doing. And it takes time to listen to us online from that distance. When I started this, it was one of the first person I also called on, to give me encouragement and push. And it's been very, very supportive of the Elevated TV brand. I make welcome the ubiquitous, the amazing, the incredible, the dynamic, the well-read and well-traveled Uyoe. Mr. Uyoe, you're welcome to my Chit Chat.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you said my name. Otherwise, I wouldn't know who you were referring to.
Okay. Let's trust that technology will allow us to have this interview, this conversation. Because for me, I set my mind, I told my crew that the next interview that I'm going to publish, and let me also say this to you, we did an interview with Jude Odoegalo, is it yesterday or 2 days ago? And that interview has been published in just about every newspaper in the world. Goal.com, the Daily Mail, Sky Sports, The Sun, the Manchester Evening News, just about everywhere. And I'm overwhelmed thinking, you know how you told me, go ahead, just do what you know how to do. The rest will follow. And that makes me happy. I was really, really elated. And I was telling my crew that the person I'm going to interview now, it's not an interview. I'm going to a class to go and learn about this whole corona pandemic, the effect on sports and finances and all that. So let me start with you. You are in Atlanta, Georgia, right?
Yes.
Okay, so how is it as the corona or COVID-19 pandemic in Atlanta? Are you on full 100% lockdown or partial lockdown?
Yeah, so for us, it's very close to 100% lockdown. Most of the works and offices are closed, the workplaces are closed. Only essential areas are open, like the supermarkets, of course, the hospitals. And so you can only go out to buy essentials, though we don't have anybody really enforcing it. This whole social distancing thing is pretty well observed. So for us, most of the essential places are closed, except maybe restaurants. If you go to a restaurant, you can do takeaway. The restaurant companies also deliver food to your house. Those types of businesses remain open, but life as we know it has certainly changed. So I would say that we're about 90% locked down.
Okay, somewhere I was speaking the other day and I told them that at some point humanity was rushing too fast. We've gotten to a place where we trust ourselves and trust our scientific evolution and engineering, and then we're beginning to take everyday existential living for granted. We're always in a hurry. You call somebody, it's like, I'm in a meeting, I'm running for another meeting, I'm late. Everybody is rushing. So the universe have decided to slowly reboot us, more like installing a 2020 software in a computer that is Pentium 1 or Pentium 2. So it's taking time to install, and we all have got to be patient. But in being patient, I'm a sports business entrepreneur. My media outfit is 80% sports and 20% entertainment, or let me say 70% sports, 30% entertainment. And this lockdown means that I am one of the people that is worst hit. For instance, my workers that are on salary get paid, even though they don't come to work, because it's not their fault. I can't make them go starving. And then, a whole lot of programs lined up. But that said, the Premiership were in a standoff meeting with the players, the PFA, the League Managers Association, the league itself, and then the English FA. They couldn't come to a compromise. But in La Liga, in in France now, I hear that they've reached a compromise in Germany and in Serie A and the rest of them. And even these leagues are also planning to come back. But then we've not even found a solution to this slow reboot or this pandemic. But then everybody's talking. The Olympic have been postponed. You're part of the Olympic movement. Euros 2020 have been postponed. We're not even sure of the African Nations Cup coming up next year. A whole lot of sporting activities. Formula One's calendar is destroyed completely. Tennis, almost completely wrecked. And all the marathons as well. Athletics Championship, I was speaking to Blessing Akagbari a couple of days ago, and the calendar is confusing. They don't even know what to do, whether to train or not to train. So I need you, because you are the expert in this area. I need you to make sense, even though we've not seen the full impact, but so far in this last 3 months or so, what are the losses like? And what are the potential damage to the sports that we've all come to love?
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that your outfit is 70% sports, 30% entertainment, and we have seen sports trending in that entertainment direction.
Yeah.
It's no more purely just athletic competition. There's so many things that happen at a sports venue. So we've seen properties like the English Premier League try to adapt to this new world with the coronavirus, and it's becoming difficult. A lot early on, last month, I mean, think about this. Today's April 10th. A month ago, March 10th, was a completely different world. You had sports properties rescheduling and things like this, thinking that they might be able to play games without fans, not knowing that there was a bigger organizational problem. And here's what it is. No one really understands this virus. So therefore, sports properties were making decisions based on best available information and based on aspirational information, as in we want to get back quickly so that we can recoup some of these losses. Let me talk about the losses. Here in the US, 3 weeks ago, the sports losses had totaled over $7 billion. This was 3 weeks ago. 7 billion 3 weeks ago. So as you pointed out, yes. So it's very hard to know what the full impact will be going forward. So that's just as of 3 weeks ago. So moreover, if you look at the nomenclature of sports itself, say football, for instance, when a player is injured, they do everything possible to get the player back on the field, even if the player is not 100%. As long as they believe that player can help the team and isn't a liability, they will push him out. And unfortunately, that is the same approach they were using for this coronavirus, thinking, okay, we can just reschedule at some point in the future, play games without fans. But you know what? Some of the coaches now and players started having coronavirus. So it's as if they were saying that the fans are the only carriers of this virus. So a complete different way of thinking is about this virus is needed, that you can't just reschedule into the future thinking that fans are the carriers. So of course they had to shut that idea down. Now we have seen players taking cuts in pay. A lot of these players live hand to mouth, unfortunately. You'll see a player making 200, 300, 400,000 pounds a week, and the next thing you know, they're broke. They are living hand to mouth, despite the fact that they make over £500,000 a week. That is the reality, unfortunately, of some of these players. To their credit, we've also seen some humanity come out during the virus. A lot of players on some of these big teams, and not just the EPL, but the NBA, have come out and said that they're going to pay salaries of the arena workers who are not in a financial position to survive if they don't get paid. So you have stars stepping up to say we'll pay salaries for 30 days of all the secretaries and the office staff and things like this. So we have seen those types of things coming through in the pandemic, but we really don't know for sure what the full impact has been. But one thing we do know for sure is that the virus does not respect a timetable. So for properties like the French Open to say we're going to play in September, that is aspirational. You don't know. My personal opinion is that I don't see how we have live sports events again as we used to know them for the rest of the year. And as a sports person, I don't like saying that. But when I look at what's happening in the US, in England, where you now lose 1,000 people a day. In Italy, I saw body bags where the military is taking out the elderly now and making very difficult decisions on who lives and who doesn't live. It's going to be difficult. And I will say this, ESPN recently did a poll in which 72% of the fans said they're not going back to the stadium until there's a vaccine for the coronavirus. And we won't have a vaccine until at least 14 months away by best guess estimates. Normally, I'm told, I'm not a doctor, my brother is a doctor, but I'm told that it takes about 8 to 10 years to develop a vaccine. Not just develop the vaccine, but test it to make sure that it's safe.
No, no, please
Of
come back
course,
again.
it
Come back with
takes
that again. It's
about
to
8 to 10 years to develop a vaccine in normal circumstances, 8 to 10 years. The coronavirus, because everybody's working on this, they're having to fast track this to the market, but it also has to be safe for human consumption. So they're saying in a best case scenario, we won't have a virus for another 14 months at the earliest. And this is with everybody in the world working on developing this vaccine for this virus, excuse me. We won't have a vaccine for another 14 months. So if you think about that, and sports fans are not rushing to go back to the stadium, you can't simply, as a sports property like the EPL, say, we're going to play this without fans, because your players and coaches can also get sick. The transmission has no respect for anyone.
yeah.
So financially, it is very difficult, very, very difficult. And we won't know the full impact yet
So
until much.
with this
Nobody knows when the end of it.
okay, with this information now, I'm forced to bring in this question. Do you think the European leagues, like the Serie A, are saying they're going to start in May? The German Bundesliga are thinking the same line. French Ligue 1 is thinking the same line, and the La Liga. And I know once that happened, the English league will also think in the same line, because this is their rationale behind it. Is the rationale behind that is they cannot refund the television money. And then for those countries where, like in France, ITV and Canal Plus pay monthly, you know, Canal Plus and ITV have already said that we're not going to pay for last month. So the league is saying, let's run the league so that we get that money. And it seems like they did not save. They've been spending as they were making. So is it a fool's castle that they are building, thinking that they will start the league next month?
I don't see how that happens. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, because I love these leagues. I love seeing the players have the opportunities, and I everything associated with the business part of this I love. But I don't see where that happens. It's aspirational, as I said, because like Canal Plus, IMG, Be In Sports, DAZN. These are some of the media houses that have stopped paying for media rights because there's no games. And
Yeah.
by the way, these properties will remember this when it's time to renegotiate rights fees. They will remember that some of their partners did not stand by them during this time of crisis. So it's not like, well, we're only going to pay 50% of the fees, or they said, no, we're not paying anything because we're not getting anything. So, I mean, and of course, within the contract, the EPL did not have the same type of insurance as, say, some of these other properties, like Wimbledon has been paying insurance for the last 17 to 20 years. $2 million a year against a pandemic. They had pandemic insurance in which they pay $2 million for the last 20 years. Now, Wimbledon, which announced last week that they were canceling their tournament, will get $141 million insurance payout. Whoa. Because they had the foresight to buy pandemic insurance. That $141 million represents roughly 50% of what they forecasted that they would make from the 2020 edition of Wimbledon. So the All England Lawn Tennis and Croquet Association, despite the fact that they're not having a tournament this year, will still make $141 million. But for properties like the EPL and some of these European leagues, I don't see how they restart the league. Some of them are saying we want to restart without fans. I just don't see where that's possible. I think that for sports properties, they have to repurpose how they think about delivering the product. For instance, now, what does a post-pandemic stadium look like when 3/4 of your fans won't be in the stands until there's a vaccine? So you have to think about this. The Euro 2020 championships were supposed to be held in 13 countries. Now they've moved the tournament to 2021, but what would that 2021 tournament look like? Can they still justify with travel restrictions and things like this? a 13 country tournament already. That was already a very ambitious goal. This is the first time they were going to.
I said to someone that, is this a tournament or a tourism competition? But then,
Yeah, yeah. So the question is, they have to look at this model. Yeah, you pushed the tournament to 2021, but will it still look like what the 2020 tournament was going to look like? The CEO of the Tokyo Olympic Games came out this morning, Good Friday, and said that he's not sure that the Olympics, which have been postponed till 2021, July 24th to be exact, that he's not sure that they will be able to host the Olympics in 2021. And somebody then asked him, well, what do you think should happen with your preparation? He said, look, I am not saying athletes should keep preparing. What I am saying is that athletes and everybody should join hands to try to fight this coronavirus. That's what I'm saying. So the tone of the Tokyo Olympic people has changed in the last 2 weeks. They went from everybody should come because we can keep you safe. And then the deputy CEO got coronavirus. So he himself was not able to
was
be
not
safe.
safe.
Yeah, for this, yeah. So, and also everybody believes that Japan has been underreporting the numbers because they wanted to save the Olympic Games. So this, by postponing the Olympics, it now allows Japan to do the right thing and fully focus on crushing this virus. So to your point, I believe that any league that says that it's going to start any time before November is purely aspirational. I don't see where it happens. The leagues will tell you that they're speaking to the best experts, the best this, the best that, but what they're not telling you is that experts also expect a second wave of this virus to start right around September. Nobody wants to hear about any second wave of anything, but that's what they're saying, just like nobody wanted to hear about the virus. So at some point, reality will kick in where media rights and things like this play a secondary role to fan and player safety.
Yeah. So as we
Yeah,
progress,
yeah. Sorry. The other thing I wanted to talk about, we're very quickly, still along the lines of the media rights and sponsorship. The sponsors, the sponsorship messaging must now change. Sponsors who are sponsoring these products, they now have to strike a different tone, because even when things start, you can't just get up there and begin this rah rah. The campaigns that you had planned previously must now all be repurposed to reflect the total
the
mood and
reality of
change
today.
of the world. Yes, the world has changed. So the sponsorship messages must also now change. And for those sponsorships that were due to expire for different properties, like the Olympics, some sponsorships were expiring this year, like the United States Olympic Committee and things like this. They now have to decide what to do. Even the EPL sponsorships that were expiring and things like this, how do you issue credits? Do you allow them to go an extra year and this type of thing? So from a business and marketing perspective, there's all kinds of issues that need to be worked out. But what's happening is sports properties are trying to work out these issues amidst a pandemic, amidst a crisis and a climate of uncertainty. So they're not even in a position to work it out because they don't know what the virus is going to do, but they're trying to make decisions anyway. And that's part of the problem.
Okay, so can I safely say here that post this pandemic, by say the third quarter or fourth quarter of next year, one of the things that would change about sports and sports property is the advent of insurance. Because taking a cue and a lesson from what Wimbledon have been able to achieve, everybody now would want to insure, because you're talking about the second wave. God forbid, we don't want it, but like I always say, God forbid, but people die every day. So it's not about me saying God forbid, but it's the reality of life. Knowing that, are we going to see sports property now doing serious insurance against things like this?
Yeah, I believe you'll start to see much more insurance policy included in rights agreements. You'll start to see all different kinds of clauses. The agreements now will be much more airtight. You'll start to see things like tsunami and earthquake and things like this be brought into rights agreements now because nobody doesn't know. One of the other impacts of this has to do with the media rights element, where now, if you look at some of these cable and satellite packages and bundles, it's sports that are preserving these bundles. People subscribe because of their love of sports. The
Absolutely.
data shows us that. Yes, so it's the sports industry that's propping up all these cable and satellite providers. Without the sports bundle, a lot of people wouldn't care about this. So now, with this, now leagues now are looking at a direct business to consumer model. Do we bypass the cable companies and provide subscriptions directly to the consumer? So they're now looking at this as a viable model, especially now that some of their providers have not stood by them during this time of crisis. So they're saying, okay, well, do we even need you? Can I, if I'm the EPL, can I go straight to Elegment TV and sell rights and provide my product without the middleman? So that's another element of this that's being looked at, because some of these bundle providers may not necessarily be adding the value that was first thought.
Okay, because I looked at some things that before now, when I was studying the models, as I was deciding to go into this business, I studied the existing models and the transitions and the changes that were coming. I saw what Netflix was doing. Netflix was my greatest inspiration. And then I saw what Amazon Prime started to do, especially the behind the scene with Man City and now Tottenham Hotspur, 10 million pounds and all those deals that they signed up. And I was telling myself that, you know, if I grow Elevator TV to this stage, I could go to Eimba and say, Eimba, let me give you 100 million naira and I'm going to get all your behind the scene shot, like Amazon Prime I've got for the some Brazilian national team, the Manchester City, Tottenham Hotspur, and some teams in the MLS. And then all of a sudden, all of this broadcast rights, my cable subscription, for instance, I paid because of sports, and I've not had sports, and there's no refund. Do you think that this is an opportunity for OTTs like us, that if we get ourselves well grounded, the future is very bright for businesses like this?
Yeah, even before now, this was already the future. I mean, if you look at, your friend Marawa TV in South Africa,
Yeah.
what he's doing down there, and like Electric TV as an organization, this was the way of the future already before this, where people are what they call cutting the cord cutting, getting rid of cable, getting rid of satellite, and going directly to the content provider. And we've seen this. And part of what's driving this, of course, is the connectivity. We now find that people are consuming sports now more from mobile devices than they are the linear TV. So with that said, and people are now able to consume sports on the go. So what used to be a stationary product, as in sports was consumed from a device that was stationary, now sports has become much more mobile, much more portable, and much more miniature, right? They've miniaturized the consumption of sports in a manner that sports now fits in your pocket. So in order for that to continue to develop and thrive, the content must be there, and content providers now are the ones that are calling the shots, more or less. So even the cable and satellite companies are delivering much more nimble, much more portable offerings, if you will, because they see that that's the direction of the business. So even before coronavirus, a direct to consumer model was already the trend line.
All right. So one of the core points of any kind of interviews that I do like this is my heart is for the Nigerian league. I mean, grassroots, but let's say the Nigerian Professional Football League. I know you wouldn't want to talk about this, but my question is, what advice can you give us so that we can run a league that is viable and profitable? Because our league have not been profitable in the last 20, 30, 40 years. How can we get our league? Look at the PSL, for instance, in South Africa. Look at the kind of numbers, the kind of money that they are turning out. And we used to borrow these people money. So what can we do to get Eimba sign big deals, get Canopilas, and then the league, when you compete in the league, you can go home with maybe tens of millions of dollars, not this 10 million naira to run the entire season.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, you talk about we used to donate money to those countries. I remember back in this is going to date myself, the Shagari administration was a donor nation to countries like South Korea and Singapore. The Shagari administration used to give money to South Korea and Singapore back in
Whoa.
the day. Yes. So yeah, oh Nigeria, the Nigeria was one of the was known for its philanthropy around the world back in the day. I mean, a very great global citizen the country was, and an economic powerhouse to boot, where the currency was on par with the British pound. So now so I say that to bolster your point. 30, 40 years ago, we used to be that guy. We used to be them. So now the question is this, and by the way, I say we because I am from the Cross River,
Yeah.
Akwa Ibom area, for those that don't know. And I grew up watching Calabar Rovers back in the day. And a vibrant league is essential because of the fact that the multiplier effect on what it could do. In addition to talent discovery, there's so many businesses that can emanate around this, and so many sponsorships that can be sold, and also the venues themselves can be rehabilitated in such a way that they provide economic opportunity beyond match day. So, like in Nigerian stadiums, only the day of the match, we scramble and all that. Even the concessions is haphazard, even if it's available at all. Nobody's thinking that these stadiums can be outfits for other things, for corporates, for retreats, and all other types of purposes beyond match day. We're only thinking of match day game, and that's it. Then everybody goes away. And now we struggle with maintaining the stadium. Whereas if there was a proper plan, the maintenance would be baked into any sort of solution or agreement that comes with the sponsorship of that stadium. So these types of things would be able to grow the league if we were able to sit down and decide. Already we know that the talent is in abundance. If you look at what many of these, even on the female side, many of these female Falcons, they go to other teams. So we know that from a local perspective, the talent is there. I think that there needs to be a holistic approach to this, to where in addition to the product on the field, we look at the sustainability, and we take a long-term approach. We don't just say, well, all right, for this year, we're going to do this. Can we have a 5 to 10-year plan that bakes in things like inflation and market forces that suggest that in addition to the players, we will look at the stadiums, we'll look at the transport, we'll look at the concessions, the food, and things like we'll look at the stadium maintenance in and of itself. You can have a sponsor for stadium maintenance. Yeah. And so can we take a holistic look? Why is it that when you look at the headquarters of Al Ali in Egypt, it looks like a finely run machine? When you look at what they're doing there, it got to the point where now Al Ali views itself almost on par as a European club. Why is it that we are not able to do the same thing in our own league? Why the neglect? Is there a way for the forces that be to come together and have the sheer will to say, we've been talking about this thing for over 20 years. Can we sit down and develop a strategy to grow our league such that when a player is taken by a European team or whatever, if they're that good to go and play in Europe, it's not a free shot on goal. Can we command transfer fees that range in the nine figures for some of our players? Such that now, when you do that, now some of these academies of some of these other clubs, they will now have an interest in partnerships to help grow the league.
It's
We need willpower. There's no incentive.
okay. Now there's finally my final point that I need you to help me look into. Most times when brands are moving into a new country, one of the properties they look at is their sports. Take for instance, every countries across the globe, if bet companies are going into this country, they don't do direct to market. They just look at, oh, there's Aimba here. Let's put our logo across. I mean, I'm wearing Fly Emirates here. Let's put our logo across Aimba, and that would give us means to market. How is it that brands don't think of that when it comes to Aimba, Canopilas, MFM, and the rest of them? How is it that we don't get that? Hello, Heidi. Hello. Whoa. I think we've lost the connection somehow. And I was actually going to, get answered to that last bit of it where I wanted to find out why we have a lot of bet companies in Nigeria. 1xBet, BetWe, NairaBet, Bet Nigeria. Yeah, and almost all of them are doing well. I saw NairaBet sponsor 3SC for over 5 years, Bet Nigeria, Remo Stars, and the rest of them. But I'm talking of the foreign ones. These are indigenous ones now. I'm talking of the 1xBet, the BetWays, and the rest of them that come in. How come they don't sit back and say, you know what, let us sponsor this club, and through this club becomes our gateway to the country, because these teams are playing across Nigeria every weekend. And because they're playing across Nigeria every weekend, our logos, our brands will be seen across the space of time. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen. We lost the connection with Uyoe, but I think that all of the things that he has said, all of the explanations that he had given would, inspire, educate, inform, and guide everyone. In this COVID-19 period, this is not a place where I am here to argue people's opinion or suggestion. I always say that I would always rely on the experts. I don't like to spiritualize things. So the simple thing that the CDC or the NCDC have told us to do, depending on what country you are: wash your hand, wear your face mask or nose mask, skip that social distancing, make sure you stay at home, go out unless it is needed. In the last couple of days, I've only gone out once to go and restock groceries and the things that we've lost. We've finished eating and the ones we shared with people. So I really, really would appeal to you, because if you listen to what he said, is that the end is not in sight yet. So let us not complicate things ourselves. Even when this whole lockdown is lifted, let us be as careful as we can. When I was growing up, there's this thing we used to say: disease not the kill African man, but African man they die. So my question is, what's in the kill African man? Let's be very careful so that we don't become victims of things that we ordinarily would avoid. My name is Idafi Matthew Esogone. You love to call me the Elevator One of Sport, and it's been my chit chat. And I've had an amazing personality, a resource person, Uyoe, who is a Nigerian based in the US, and I'm very proud of him, and I'm happy that it was on my chit chat, even though technology didn't allow us to complete the conversation. Some other time again, we will have this conversation going. Thank you very much for watching, and thanks for subscribing to our channel, sharing our work, commenting on our work, and talking about us with your data and your time. God bless you, and have yourself a safe time. Please stay at home.